Dan, before we get started today, could you just please hold up both of your hands? I need to count all of your fingers.
All right, there you go.
Okay. One, two. Okay.
They're all here.
I was again reading your Facebook comments. That's something I do now for my pastime enjoyment. It's reading.
Entertainment.
Yeah, it's so entertaining. So you were catching grief this week because you were shoving your hand up inside your kindling maker.
Yes.
And people were warning you about the dangers of that. But I was looking at it. Your arm would literally have to be 15 feet long for it to get into the business side of that thing.
Well, yeah, maybe more like 6 or 7 feet long. But
You'd
yeah.
have to be Plastic Man.
Yep.
Stretch Armstrong. I had one of those toys growing up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it would take a long reach to get to where it would be any danger.
Yeah. And people were saying that the machine wasn't any good because you had to shove your hand up inside of there to clear it. But you were pointing out the reason it was jamming was because you had mounted your camera up inside of it, and the wood was getting stuck on your camera.
Well, so I always like forget about those things when I'm doing a video, and I don't point out the fact that I'm reaching in there. I mean, I did mention that it kind of jams up, but it jammed up because the wood was piling up and then hitting my camera and the camera mount. And so I was always like scooping the wood away so that you could still see what was going on. So I was like moving the wood away from like the lens.
Yeah.
And so it appeared that I was constantly having to try to like scoop this wood out or move it along. And really that's not the case. Without a camera in there, like the wood just builds up and then it just keeps pushing right out.
Yeah.
All on its own.
Such are the hazards of being a social media influencer that you are not just running the machine, but you got cameras stuck in all these odd places and trying to make a coherent video about it.
Right. Trying to capture the action, that brings up limitations sometimes. And it brings up things that if you don't point it out, it can seem that, yes, the machine was jamming up or the wood wasn't moving out and things like that.
Yeah. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in today to the Hounds podcast. My name is Joe, and I'm sitting across the table here from Dan. And we are both YouTube personalities, social media kind of like people. And we've started this podcast just to get deeper into issues and topics within our industry, within social influencing. And looking at our metrics, we have been getting a lot of new listeners coming on board. So I just wanted to take a couple seconds just to introduce ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But there have been quite a few new followers and just, people, I think, tuning in. Just finally, I mean, what have we been doing this now? 2.5, almost 3 years. And people are starting to discover us. In fact, last week, I heard from someone who listens to the podcast from Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are a firewood podcast, but I'm going to be honest with you, and that's just something I learned about when I started my business of selling firewood. I now feel that it doesn't matter what the product is, I could sell it. But, I like firewood. I'm passionate about it. But the same thing goes. It doesn't matter if you're selling firewood, if you're selling plastic pumpkins or donuts. I think once you learn the pace and the style of business, I think you can just pretty much sell anything that you want. You still have to learn the industry. You still have to develop your procurement streams, and you have to develop your sales approach and your clientele base. But it's pretty much all the same. It's all about buying low and selling high.
Yeah, that formula does apply. The formula for
Yeah,
success could apply just the same to firewood.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. You really don't need an interest in firewood, I think, to find some of the topics that we discuss appropriate, or that's something that you can relate to whatever your side hustle is, something that you're trying to turn into a full-time business. And now saying that, there are still some specific firewood related things that we would like to talk about. And some of that came up this week, Dan, and you and I had a lengthy discussion on our weekly phone call. And we thought, you know what, this would make a very good podcast episode. And it was again related to a comment that came into your Facebook page when you were running that kindling making machine that you have.
The Kinlet 200.
Yeah, which I understand is either electric, you plug it into the wall, or it's PTO power, which PTO is that drive shaft that comes off the back of a compact tractor or a big tractor, and you can spin any type of device that requires power.
Yes, it is a currently PTO powered option and three phase electric or two phase electric option.
Yeah,
But in the future, there will be a Power Pack Honda engine
there you
option.
go.
But for now,
There you go.
yes, the model I have is PTO powered.
Yeah. And this is just an open comment to all of the world's manufacturers that are out there and you're looking to increase your footprint in the United States. Put a gas or diesel engine on it. Okay. And problem is solved, man. Yeah. We're not into PTO power as much over here, or three phase electric or the like, or big rubber bands, twisting the rubber bands kind of a thing. Yeah, put a gasoline engine on it and watch what happens. And then I think I should get a percentage of your sales increase by giving you that little
Oh,
insight.
yeah, there's the insight coming out. That's all it
Yeah.
takes. Yeah.
Yeah. But Dan, there is still something that I want to talk about because it's not just specific to this issue, but I think it gives us some insight into the firewood industry as a whole. And it was a comment that you got when you were showing how your tractor can run the Kinlet with the PTO shaft. All right. And I have received this comment on a number of occasions where I'm running I had a PTO powered processor at one time. And that comment is where people bristle at the idea of running that firewood machine with a tractor. And what is it that they always say that kind of rubs me the wrong way?
I believe the phrase is you are putting hours on your tractor.
Worthless or meaningless hours.
Yes. It's a great machine, but you are putting hours on your tractor.
Oh gosh. Gosh. I don't know. I don't know. There are a couple of comments that just by nature get under my skin, and man, that one's on the short list. I
Yeah.
just, gosh, I cannot handle when a person makes that comment about a putting worthless hours or just putting needless hours on your tractor. And here's the reason why. I have run my brush hog, my flail mower, and a wood chipper on that, chips up branches. I
Right.
run
Yep.
my firewood through it to make barbecue chips. I've never received any one of those comments on any of those videos. They'll just say, "Wow, that's really cool.
Really?
Good job." Not a once. But when I ran my Yappa 315 PTO power on it, I got a bunch of comments that said, what I hate about this is that you're just putting hours on your tractor.
On the tractor.
Yeah. And you had a PTO powered Yappa processor, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you were bombarded with such comments.
Yeah, I at first I didn't really it didn't really like hit me, and I didn't really like comprehend what, what their gripe was. And because for me, when I first would start getting those comments, I always thought to myself, well, that's what I have the tractor for. And then as I started thinking about it more, it's like any attachment, anything you use your tractor for, the tractor is always like powering, like you said, the flail mower, the brush hog, like it's always something
Yeah.
that's doing the job.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But okay, but now here you are, you're making firewood, kindling, okay, with your PTO power from your tractor. And now you start getting comments that you're just wearing out a tractor. So, don't you see something consistent with these comments? Maybe because I sure do, where you don't hear anyone ever complain about a tractor. Like when I'm loading logs onto my live deck, no one ever says, Joe, you're just putting hours on your tractor. When I'm,
Mm,
when I'm moving dirt with my bucket, Joe, you're just putting hours on your tractor. When I'm mowing my yard, when I'm chipping firewood, no one ever says that.
you never
When
get it.
I'm, no, when I'm chipping branches, not a comment.
Hmm.
But when I am running a firewood processor or when you're running a kindling maker, here comes the comments. Do you see something consistent there?
So the theme is if you were working with firewood,
Hmm.
it's only putting hours on your tractor, but anything else you're doing
Hmm.
with a tractor, it seems to be fine.
Yeah, Dan,
Yeah.
I think you're on to something.
Did I hit it? Did I hit the nail on the head there? Is that
You
the theme?
you did, Dan.
Oh,
You hit the nail squarely with the possum there. Yes, you did. Why is it? And I have a theory, but I'm just going
oh,
to ask this question out there. Why is it that you can use a tractor for 1,001 tasks, and that's what tractors are for? But if it is involved with making firewood, then the comments start that you're just putting needless hours on your tractor. Why is that, Dan?
I am just sitting here on the edge of my seat, waiting for this theory, this thesis to come out of your
Yeah.
mind here, because I don't know.
Well, you already made, one of the key observations is like, what in the heck did you buy a tractor for in the first place? You know,
Yeah. Okay.
you buy a tractor to work. You buy a tractor to do stuff for you. To, it's just like buying a shovel. Why did you buy a shovel? Because digging with your hands gets old after a while. you know, why is it okay? Why?
Yep.
Oh, you're just wearing that shovel out by using it. Why don't we hear on woodworking channels people saying, "Why are you running that table saw? You're just wearing out the blade on it."
Hmm.
Why do we not hear on baking channels about, that mixer? You're just wearing that mixer out by using it. But holy cow, when you use a tractor to create firewood, which is creating value, I'm here to tell you, we catch
Yes.
grief for it. We catch grief for it, Dan.
And when you think about it, it's actually, I mean, yes, the hours are going on the engine, but the tractor's not moving, so you're not wearing out the transmission. You're not using, like it's
Yeah,
almost like that would be a better use of a tractor is to have it stationary and just running.
yeah. So,
I don't know.
if they're okay, if you could have your choice between like a 10 horsepower lawnmower engine or your big tractor, there's some convenience there, maybe an economy factor as well. But guess what? If you bought a PTO powered processor, you just saved yourself a ton of money because they're cheaper,
Yep.
and you power it with a tractor. And if you feel that there's a convenience factor, well, your tractor's hooked up to the processor, it can't be doing other stuff. But if you work by yourself, it isn't going to be doing other stuff anyways.
No.
And how hard is it just to pull the drive shaft off off your tractor, Dan?
Yeah, it connects and
Pretty
disconnects
easy.
pretty easy. Yeah,
Pretty
pretty
easy.
quick.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yet, while all of this is going on, and while the reason that we've invented tractors to begin with is to work around the farm, to work around the yard, they're just great machines. They're held in high esteem. There's tractor clubs out there. There's calendars with tractors on them. There's tractor YouTube channels.
There's tractor
And these track
shows, tractor
oh yeah,
pulls.
yeah,
Yeah.
tractors, and they're just this great, honest, hardworking machine, but don't use them to make firewood.
Oh, and what? So are we is this where we're going to hear the theory here? I'm waiting.
Well, I'm just I think it's obvious. I think it is because people hold firewood in low regard. And it's low esteem, low value, beneath everything. And that's why I think people think that you shouldn't be making or working a tractor to make firewood, because it's a waste.
Oh.
It's a waste of time. And that is what really gets under my skin, because I guess it's just the way you look at firewood. But the way I look at firewood is it is precious. It is valuable. It's a way to make a living. And you know what? I think I think I wouldn't allow a rusted tractor to run my processor. It has to be a nice, clean one.
So in the big barrel of industries, you're saying firewood is looked at as near or on the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, well, for some people,
But
and it's
that's how
not,
most people look at it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, it shows. Okay, this tractor thing, this tractor issue is not the problem, is what I'm going to say. It is a symptom of the
Mm,
underlying problem. The underlying problem is some people have very low regard for firewood. And the tractor is just the symptom. And it shows in other areas of the industry. And you hear it all the time. Stacking the firewood is a waste of time. Splitting it down and resplitting it is a waste of time.
yes.
Handling it too many times. There are people out there
Oh
that
my.
still have the belief that the more you touch firewood, the more money you lose, and that's just 100% wrong. Now, not touching it and selling it by split and sell or dumping it, there's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead and do it. But if you are doing that because you feel that if you were to fiddle with the firewood more than dump and go or split and sell, that is a 100% incorrect belief. you know,
Right.
and it's just incorrect because look around. There's a bunch of people out there that don't sell firewood through split and sell, and they're doing quite well. So why? Okay, and then you have the tractor. You have the don't stack it because that's a waste of time. Don't season it. That's a waste of time. Don't keep your oak for 2 years because that's a waste of time. Don't don't do anything other than split and sell. It's
Yes.
a
And
waste of
don't,
time.
yeah.
And
The fewer times you touch it, the more money you'll make.
oh
Or
God.
every time you touch it, you lose money. I saw a post, somebody put a post out of a picture of a delivery they did, and they stacked it, and they said, they listed what they got for the delivery, and then they listed what they got extra for stacking it. And then somebody
Uh-huh.
left a comment that said, every time you touch the wood, you lose money. And I was like, well, wait a minute. He touched it to stack it and he got more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's not true there. What's going on?
Yeah. I think that also hits onto I talk about not being afraid to be a free thinker, and just don't accept what the dominant voice in your universe says to you. And there are a lot of people out there that have just heard this over the years and they just believe it.
Yeah.
And it's just factually not true. All right. And so the more you process a commodity, the more valuable it becomes. It's just like drilling oil out of the ground. When you drill oil out of the ground, why aren't the tanker captains, calling up AutoZone and complaining that they're selling oil in these 1 quart bottles? Because you're just wasting time because that oil was touched and refined too much.
Losing money every
Yeah,
time.
that's not true. You make more money. And the same thing with firewood. But I think that's where this comments with these tractors. And it's a waste of a tractor. It's a waste of a good tractor to make firewood. That this comes from. That's
So
the way I see things.
yeah, so just the general consensus around firewood being held in, like you said, low standards, low regard, like that's what makes people think there's no money in it, and the more you put into it, the less you're going to get out. Where the
Yeah.
opposite is, the more you put in, you should be getting more out.
Yeah. But I think too that the reason people don't even take the extra effort to just think that comment through, that touching firewood, you lose money, you know? And then just looking at it logically, I think it's pretty easy to figure out that this maybe, well, there's a lot of evidence out there to the contrary. So maybe this isn't true. But I think that is just the attitude that people have about firewood. They just think that it is just something that you just slam and cram it into your truck and just dump it somewhere, and you're scared to death to touch it. And you have such low regards that you don't even want to stack it. And running a tractor to make it is beneath the tractor. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and the idea that you I think the one thing is people are always in a race to the bottom with their pricing, and that's where yeah, you do lose money every time you touch it. But if you would just put the value and sell it for the value that you've added to it, that might start making everyone think a little different. I don't know. I struggle with that all the time as well. I'm always like wondering why this whole, every time you touch it, you lose money. I mean, and it's kind of like, I mean, not really related to, but like back in the day when I was wrestling, you'd have promoters that would put on a show and they'd put nothing into it. Like they would do no value add to their presentation of the show.
Yeah.
And it would reflect, like the fans would leave thinking, "Oh, this is a joke." But then if you had promoters that, they put money into lights and sound systems and made the ring, aprons and skirting, everything look top notch, people would leave that with the impression that, oh, hey, this is pretty cool. This is, like the real deal. And
Yeah.
I don't
And
know
they
if,
would be willing to spend more money to attend and
yes,
watch.
yes.
And about the firewood and about touching firewood, this is my thought process on this. When I get a triaxle load of logs from log hauler Jesse and they show up at my wood yard and I pay him for them and he lays them on the ground. So at what point does me fiddling with the firewood cause me to start losing money? Um,
Mm.
is it is it turning those 20-foot logs into firewood? Does that touch cause me to lose money? Or does resplitting it from a big chunk, making, instead of 4 pieces per log, I've made 8 pieces per log? Is that where I start to lose money? Is it, instead of driving it straight to the customer's house and dumping it on their driveway, instead of doing that, I stack it and let it sit? Is that where I start losing money? Is it when I load it into my truck? Or is it when I eventually deliver? Or is it if I, instead of delivering one cord, I deliver quarter cords 4 times? Where do I start losing money, Dan?
Good question. I have no idea. And what is there like, is it after 3 touches, 4 touches? What is the limit where if you've touched it this many times, you should just not even touch it again? Like
Yeah.
where,
And I
yeah,
think too, if the people that say this kind of stuff, I don't even think they can define it either about, what are you talking about? You know, I mean, I understand about being inefficient. You stack it over there. And even if you were inefficient, how are you losing money?
yeah.
How are you losing money? How is that firewood becoming less? But I think they would say, well, that's because you are not spending that time making more firewood. But that assumes that A, I want to make more firewood, and B, I got more firewood to make. And the way it's been for me lately, I don't. Getting logs is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that I've yet to figure out. Yeah, but I think that all of this, these are symptoms of the underlying problem. And that is that people just, you know, firewood is a low end, unappreciated, disrespected commodity.
Mm,
It's not cantaloupe. It's not ears of corn. It's not soybeans. It's not play sand. How come you don't
no.
hear anyone in play sand complaining that they sell it in 50-pound bags?
Right.
When you can buy
Yeah.
a ton of it for practically the same amount.
it is it is very interesting when you, like you said, at what point when the log is dropped on the ground in your wood yard, at what point do you start losing money?
Yeah.
Because for
Well, I know the answer is that you don't.
yeah,
you make
it's
more. You make more money,
you
but
take
yet,
that, yeah, and you keep adding value to it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's like if that was the case when you would go to your big box store to buy lumber, you'd only have 20-foot boards to pick from.
yeah,
Like why would you cut a 20-foot board down to a 10-foot or a 6-foot or an 8-foot? Like why would they waste money and touch that wood more to make it something other than what it is?
yeah.
I don't know.
And I don't know. From my vantage point, for my tractor, it is an honor for it to be involved in making firewood. I would never disrespect my tractor by putting meaningless hours on it by shoveling horse manure.
Right. Every hour is meaningful.
Yeah, what the heck? I mean, it's a tractor. Why did they invent tractors? It's to work them,
Does
you
your
know?
tractor have a name?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh.
I
What?
call it tractor. I have
I call
one
my
machine
tractor
with it.
tractor.
I have one machine with a name. My four-wheel drive, its name is Trucky.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. All of my machines have names, but they're all female names.
Oh gosh.
Yep. Yeah.
Care any of them? Any of them you care to share with us?
Well, my tractor's name is Khaleesi. I think a lot of people know that. The coyote is Khaleesi off of Game of Thrones. And it's like that's the queen. That's the queen of the woodyard because it gets so much done. So
Yeah.
why would I not have it if not to get things done?
Yeah. I did a video about, my truck being broken down and just gosh, everything comes to a screeching halt, but it's the same with my tractor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good night. How I ever got by without a tractor is beyond me. Beyond me. It's got to be one of the greatest inventions of all time. It's right up there with the chainsaw. Yeah.
And how many worthless hours do you have on your tractor?
Yeah, I got oh, this is
500?
deal no, it's dealing with numbers here. It's like 300, I think. No.
Really?
No, 400. It's got 400. Just had the 400-hour service um by
Wow.
Leppo, my Bobcat dealer out here. Yeah. Love my
Yeah.
tractor. Yeah. It is like I said, how how I ever got through life without it is beyond me. They are just a great invention and they are born to work.
Yes.
Yeah, they are not born to sit and not work. And I honestly can't think of a better way to use a tractor than by powering a firewood machine.
Right.
Yeah. Firewood is a precious commodity and it deserves the respect that we all have for it. It needs to be each piece needs to have its own individual barcode. It,
Yep.
it needs to be brushed and set perfectly on the shelf.
I'm thinking back to when my dad was farming. Now I'm wondering why at the end of each day, why did he drive the tractor from the field all the way back home and put those hours on it? He should have just left it out there in the field. Because
Yeah.
then it's, that's where. So yeah, it's like those are the things, like all these factors and variables that people don't ever think about when they're using their tractor and it actually might be not doing any work. But,
Uh-huh.
around the wood yard, like for me, running that kinlet, it's working. It's doing what it's intended to do.
Yeah. I deal with that too do you leave it idling or do you turn it off? I don't know what the right answer is. And I've had everyone
Oh,
tell me, I've had 50 people tell me turn it off and 50 people tell me leave it run.
yep. And if you're running it, what RPM do you run it at? Like I always get told that I'm not running it at a high enough RPM, and
Yeah. I have like my own sweet spot. If it gets too high, my front end loader gets too jerky.
yeah,
But if it's too low, I don't know. I get bored. It needs to have a little bit more pep to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, I tell you what, good another good discussion here. Hopefully people out there, if you have any thoughts, an insight of your own that you would like to share with us, feel free to send us an email, thewoodhounds@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and
Yes.
just tell us what you think.
Yeah, but keep in mind, you're just putting extra time on your keyboard and wearing out those keys on your laptop when you type that email.
That's right. Take that into consideration.
Yeah, this could go on forever.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line, Dan? I tell
I
you.
don't know. I know.
All
I
righty.
know where. Striking up the
Yeah.
band.
Well, yeah, let's strike up the band and let's head on down the road, Dan, but don't use the tractor
No.
because you're just putting meaningless hours on it. All right. Well, we do want to thank you for tuning into the Woodhounds podcast and helping us become the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
Yes. And thanks for listening on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you give this a listen, go ahead and give it a 5-star rating, because those are things we will never get tired of and wear out.
Yes.
5-star ratings. Yes.
You cannot wear out a 5-star rating.
No. Bring 'em
Okay. So Dan, how about we tell everyone to don't
on. Put hours on your tractor.
and stay
Cool.
and have
A great day.